Rob Coldwell, my good friend. Man, dude, what is going on, brother? Welcome to the Financial Freedom Fast podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Matt. Thanks for having me on here, brother.
Oh man, I am so excited to have these conversations with you today, man. Why don't you tell the people who you are, what you do, the whole works, man. What do you do, Rob Coldwell?
Sure. The short version is I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania with my wife. We just celebrate our 15-year engagement anniversary on Sunday.
Mm.
Four little kids, 7 to 14. And in 2009, my wife and another business partner started a company called Your Local Leasing Company. And before that, I bought a couple properties in what I now call my hometown, Westchester, PA, college town, about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia. And then I went on 10 years of growing my property management company, didn't buy any real estate, but in the last 3 years, we've acquired 60 apartments and houses, and I'm starting off this year pretty strong with 40 units in the pipeline. So we are a vertically integrated investment group where we have our own service company, and that service company is supported by a property management company, and the property management company is supported by a general and administrative hub that does heavy on bookkeepers and administrative HR finance types that help to keep all the numbers accurate and all the reports flowing.
Hey man, congrats on the 15 years of engagement. That is incredible. And congrats on the huge growth of your business, man. You're at 60 units now and you're looking at buying 41 units or so. That's a pretty big jump. Any nerves there coming into that?
It's like that overnight success, right? So we manage at one point, Rentwell Property Management was in 5 states and managed close to 3,000 rental units for over 800 different clients. That means 800 tax IDs and
Mm.
email addresses and phone numbers of real estate investors that were trusting us to manage their properties. Over the last 3 years, we've sold off those Rentwell offices to other operators, and we landed on two, an office in Pittsburgh and an office in Philadelphia. So now we no longer have to worry about multiple states and brokers, and we're in one state. And I actually have a lot of energy behind these 41 doors. I feel good about them. The capital stacks is one of the most important things because I buy these sometimes with myself and my business partner in Rentwell. His name's TJ. Excuse me. And other times we set up a small joint ventures with people that we've already know, like trust, and they've already invested with us, and we'll go take down a building. So I think there's always going to be some fear and some unknowns, and we've connected over the meditation front, right? So I observe those fears. I see them for what they are. The mind is a powerful thing, and then I will write down, have project plans. I'm a mix of integrator and visionary. I try to know when I need to pick up each hat.
Mm.
No real trepidation on it. Been doing this for a while. Have a lot of property management experience, and we'll see. I'm not coming at a place from like ego and cockiness, more centered, and it just feels right. With this move, we will be Rentwell's largest client. And every new building we buy, we have an academy that has a lot of training for all of our team members, 28 in total right now. They're learning right alongside me. I'm learning right alongside them. It's making us a better property management company is what it's doing.
I
So
love that. A little bit of a vertical integration while building out your own portfolio there. I love what you said about sitting behind it, seeing whatever fear may be there, whatever may come up, and you can see that, acknowledge it, sit back, and then make a plan about how you want to attack this thing and make yourself feel better. So at one time, you were managing 3,000 units and you sold off some of the offices. How many offices did you have at your high point?
7.
7 offices, and now you're down to 2. So how many units does your current
1,500.
1,500? Okay, so I would imagine that when you currently run and operate 1,500 units, you bringing on 40 units is not as big of a deal as it could be. Like, you have 60 units right now, but it's probably not as big of a deal to you as it may seem to be if you're already managing 1,500 units. How is this property management company giving you more confidence to go and invest in buildings like this?
Yeah. So property management's interesting. It's we met through mastermind group, right? And I was in that mastermind group for about a half a decade before we met. I
Mhm.
was a bit of the redheaded stepchild. And what I mean by that is everybody else is a broker or already a developer or a redeveloper or an investor. And they're saying, what do you mean you're managing? At that time, it was like 400 doors. And they're like, dude, that's the hardest work, lowest margin. Why would you do that? And they were like 400 doors for everybody else. There were only 3 doors for myself.
Mm.
And the truth of the matter was, is I got into that business very much. There was absolutely a lot of fear in I had to leave one career to then start this small business, and I wanted to get back to my roots of the entrepreneurship and be my own boss. And then there was a period of time where I didn't want to own any real estate because it was so hard to manage everybody else's. And then enough time passed on those 3 properties that I had bought back in 2005 and 2006, where I was able to refinance one of them, buy a beach house. Another one I was able to refinance, reinvest back into the property, pay off some other debts that I had accrued along the way. And I was like, wow, this is as a property manager, rents, you see a lot of the operating expenses, but you
Mm.
don't see principal reduction. You do not see appreciation. Many times we would
Mm.
find out that a property got sold after it was sold. Hey, I just sold 123 Main Street. Send me back my trust account and give the security deposit to this guy. You're like, whoa, what the heck? So, Matt, now it's cool. But for a decade, like a solid 10 years, most of the people in my company were burned out. They didn't want to own real estate. We did
Right.
a survey once and we said, hey, who wants to own rental properties? There was a summit that we did. Like one hand went up. And I was like, oh man. And then we dove into it. And if you're, let's say, a transaction coordinator, that's a person that sets up a lot of showings and runs background checks on people, and like you're focusing on like the fake pay stubs and the person who's really frustrated that they didn't get approved. And if you're the guy doing move outs, you're not, and there's 40 move outs in August, you're focused on the 8 that either didn't get moved out or trashed the place. That's the challenge. So you're not thinking about appreciation, depreciation, tax principal reduction. You're worried about, oh my god, does every plumbing like go wrong on the holidays?
Mm.
Like every
Mm.
snowstorm, like getting people out there to, you're worried about the services. You miss the bigger picture. It's why I think you really have to have a certain personality and build a team around yourself to manage the real estate. Otherwise, it can slow you down. Because when I'm buying these 41, I am not managing these 41. It would not go well if I was managing these 41. I am very good. I'm a very good starter. Like most people that are getting into real estate, they're good at starting, they're good at calculating risk. They're good at figuring out the velocity of money. Maybe they have some construction experience, but that none of that lends itself to the monotony of the day to day collect rent, coordinate maintenance, be kind to the tenant, treat them with respect, follow all the local rules, send the letters for lease renewals, deal with the Section 8, balance the bank accounts every month, make sure you didn't miss a work order. Oh, follow up on that vendor that didn't give you all the photos and you don't have an invoice from yet. Like it's almost like you need a dual personality to be able to do this. And yeah, so you don't need your own management company to be a real estate investor. If you can run a really good management company, it can absolutely help you out.
Dude, you didn't get to see you got those 3 properties, which I think was good, or those 3 doors, which I think was great because that let you to see the upside in real estate. I didn't even think of it from the property management aspect. You literally only see the terrible stuff that goes on with real estate, and you deal with the issues and the problems, and it may make real estate just seem like it's a hellstorm. So if there's anybody out there listening to this that works for a property management company, just know that if you own the real estate, there can be some better outcomes. On the side where it's buying real estate, or when you're buying real estate, working with a property management company or being the PM yourself. Let's say you have 10, you're in my position, 16 doors. And
16.
like I can manage them, but uh, so what I've done is I brought someone in-house and they basically take all the phone calls, they do everything, run it pretty smooth. But you have 16 doors and it's gonna cost you 10% and take 2 grand out of your cash flow when the properties are making you cash flowing you conservatively 6 grand a month. To take a third of that cash flow away sometimes hurts. Would you say in the beginning, what's the point? I need no more PM, or what's the point where I'm no longer the PM and I need to either hire that out or build a company?
Experience is what you get just after you needed it. So the challenge is when I hear I'm going to do the first four myself, and
Mhm,
then Rob, I'm going to hire you or anybody to
mhm,
manage once I get to 10 or 15. Usually 10 to 15 is the breaking point for a lot of people. The challenge is like how much time did you spend getting prepared for it?
mm,
How many real estate books did you read? How's your lease? How's your tenant placement? What's your Rolodex of maintenance contacts, legal contacts? Do you know all the rules and laws and obligations that go into it? How close do you live to the property? What does your time look like? I understand wanting to learn the business. I get that part. And I understand in some areas where the good property managers don't exist because it's a hard business to run. I have very high standards, and it's a challenging business to have a very consistent output in the product, which is a service that you're providing.
mhm,
So I don't know what the magic number is. I think some people are going to be better suited to lend themselves to self manage. Certainly, geography is a factor, right? If you're driving more than 35 minutes, certainly more than 45 minutes or an hour, that can get old real fast. Then it's going to be the age of the building. An older building, I'm in Pennsylvania, you're in Pennsylvania, right? Turn of the century type stuff, 1920.
mhm,
Unless you've done a full renovation, what I do is I do big league burrs, is what they call them. I will buy a property for $400,000, but I might put $600,000 into that building. And
mm,
it is brand new when I'm done. And like I can count on one hand how many work orders are going to come in over the next 2 years. So that's a lot different than something that's going to need continual upkeep and improvement. And then also, you have to make a distinction between property management. That doesn't include property maintenance. Some people lump them all in as one. So I have some clients where we'll manage the property, but they'll still do their own maintenance. And they live nearby. They don't want to pay the 65, 75, $80 an hour for maintenance techs to come out there. They use it as a way to, they don't even tell the tenant that they're the owner. They're there to service the heater. They're
mm,
not, and then they'll let us know if they see anything else, and then we deal with it. So some
mm,
areas are easier to rent. Some areas are the rents are higher. It's easier to collect. There's a spectrum of we've identified 8 residential type rentals from short-term rentals, insurance claims where they have to place families. We've identified co-living, and then you have luxury and traditional 12-month and subsidized housing and student housing. We could have an hour on just should you self manage, and then it would almost be good to have the listener call in and say, here's my profile. This is my Myers Briggs or my DISC or my culture index. This is how I'm wired. Me, I'm a daredevil. I'm all gas and no brake. It means I don't like to do the recurring stuff. I don't like to do as much the things that are always going to have to be done every month. I'd rather outsource them and then focus on the new. Some people are more of a mix, but if you're managing your own real estate, it's all the time. There's something to do all the time,
always.
all the time. And
Mm,
that's the challenge of it. And then it's like, why did you get into the business? Are you really just buying yourself a job?
mm.
But And if I don't care if somebody manages or not manages, but get property. Like, I am just a big believer in
Mm,
owning the land and owning a building and taking good care of it and being improving it so it's good for the community, treating your tenants with respect and charging fair market rents and having a nice asset. Like, I love it. And I know other people love it, and I'm a big proponent of who collects the rent, coordinates the maintenance, does the accounting, does the rental license. You'll figure it out and it'll evolve. But
now, I didn't even know that some property management, you can separate that where they don't do the work. You can have either your contractor go and do it, you could go and do it, and they'll just manage the paperwork, the phone calls, the tenants, all those types of things. Is there typically like a big cost difference between those two? Is it
we
like
rolled out a
5% to
program.
10%?
It's a great question, Matt. We rolled out a pro. So yeah. So here's the challenge. At the turn of the century and with the Great Depression is where property management really took off. That was like one of the phases. If you go in Pennsylvania, you get your broker's license and they teach you like one course on property management. That's what they'll tell you. What happened was the banks took the properties back and they had so many properties, they needed property managers to manage it. And a lot of it was like one room in a big real estate office that would manage the real estate. So I'm talking about traditionally like the scattered site single families. So about 20 years ago, the software started to come out. The rent managers, the property wares of the world, like the original Yardi, Voyager type
Mhm.
versions, they allowed companies like myself to exist where the software does a lot. You have to know how to run the software. Some brokerages, like Rentwell, for instance, we have a program called the Boss Program, and that's branded as such because the landlord can stay as the boss of they want to have control. They actually want to place their own tenants, and then they want to be on vacation and not get the maintenance call, but they want to decide what to do with it if it truly is a maintenance call, if that makes sense. They don't
Mm,
want to collect rent and do their accounting and maybe possibly be there for rental licenses. So the three main parts are placing tenants, like who's handling the money and who's handling the maintenance. You can find brokerages
mm,
that'll let you place tenants. Sometimes that's pretty rare because they don't want you violating fair housing. They want to
mhm,
have it on their lease and a number of things. Then there's other brokerages that will allow they want you to field the call or the portal request and do some diagnostic and then send the work order to them and then they handle it. If a property management company is going to send a work order direct to a vendor, they have to make sure that vendor is licensed if one is required, but absolutely insured. So
mm,
that's why a lot of management companies don't want to use the client's vendor because most of the client's vendors, not most, but there's a percent, especially around the handyman, they're not carrying the right insurance. So if
right.
something happens, the management companies draw it in. And then the third component, which is we've covered the maintenance call and the leasing, the third component is the rent collection. Depending on the area and how difficult the rent is to collect, like at a certain point, you grow out of the Excel spreadsheet real
Mm,
fast. As soon as there's a late payment, as soon as there's a credit back, those systems start to break down. QuickBooks can be a little clunky. So
right.
some of the landlords that are good at the maintenance side, they're not good at the paperwork side. And any management company that's worth its salt should really be very good at the accounting side.
Mm.
So it's bit of a bit
So
of a
do
menu
you,
to pick from.
on the accounting side, do you talk directly with the accountants of your clients, or do you like close your books, send the books to the accountant, and then the accountant prepares all that for them? Are you dealing directly with them, or are you just directly with the client?
We're direct with the client. We will give them every month. These softwares are unbelievable. So all these softwares have 50 different reports that you could make available to the clients. Most companies that I've seen, no, I've acquired a half a dozen management companies. So I'm trying to
Mm,
present this not just from Rentwell, but also just what I've seen in the space. So most clients, which is the landlord, are getting 5 or 6 reports a month. those reports should be posted after the management company bookkeepers, controllers have balanced all the bank accounts to make sure that everything's accurate and run their checks and balances. At the end of the year for tax time, the management company is the one that's doing the 1099s out to all the vendors. They're doing the 1099s out to all the clients for the gross rents that were collected. And then they're sending them a statement that has ours is about, I don't know, probably 50 lines long that says, here's the various income accounts, laundry, pet rent,
Mm,
utility reimbursement, of course, rent itself, maybe security deposit damages that got applied to rent. And then it's all the expenses like grouped like legal and housing, utilities, maintenance, special projects. So at the end of the year, they can then get the 1099 over to the CPA or the tax preparer or do it themselves, and they can get the income statement over. It takes me an hour to do those 3 rental properties that I have, sometimes less. So I get my report from Rentwell, it has the month by month income statement. I have my 1099 that I'm making sure it's the right amount, and then I let my tax preparer know, "Hey, here's what my real estate taxes were, here's what my insurance was, and did I pay for any maintenance directly? Like I did some renovations that I didn't have to go through my management company. And if I'm capitalizing anything versus taking it as an expense. If I rebuilt, like I added a bathroom to a rental property this year to increase the value, it was about $15,000. So that's a capital expense. And on the income statement, it would be listed as just an expense. So that those types of nuances, the landlord still needs to do it.
right. Rob,
Yeah.
so switching now to more of the owner side. So now we've dealt with the big PM side, which I also kind of want to ask you. Let's start here. Why did you even want to start a property management company, dude? There's so much red tape. What was your why in the beginning in 2009? I think you said it was
It started in 2007 or 2008. I got a pay cut.
2007.
I got a pay cut, Matt. I was working, I didn't even count my hours because I don't think like that. I was working for a company that I thought was going to be like the next McDonald's. And there was a couple, it was owned by a private equity firm. I was the CEO in training, loved what I did. And then a new CEO come on board. I took a pay cut shortly after that with the Great Recession. And I said, okay, man, the cheese has moved. I'm going to need to find something else to do. I was a young father. I had these 3 rental properties. I had maybe $15,000 in the bank. And man, what am I going to do? Well, I'm at these franchise shows because I was a certified franchise executive, which is like this title that they give you when you do the courses and you do all the franchise shows. And I was looking around at all the different businesses there. So I'm leaving my booth, checking out all the other businesses. And there were a couple, like All County, Real Property Management. Then one came out called Renter's Warehouse. And I spent the next year getting on airplanes and going to visit them. I wanted a business that was a service business. I wanted a business that could not be completely outsourced. I wanted a business that would actually run as a business, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the third quadrant, like an actual business system. One in a business with a beta of 0, which means it does well regardless of the economy. Think Walmart, right? You don't want to be selling fancy stuff and luxury products in a depression. You want to So that's basically what I backed into, Matt. It was either going to be cutting hair, like a sports clips or a hair cuttery and just own 50 of them, or it was going to be this property management. I thought I was going to buy a franchise. I ended up not buying a franchise because none of those aligned with my goals and my values and my vision. So I built it up as if it was a franchise. Rentwell is basically a license that I own that I can charge a royalty to. I would do it for those 7 offices around the Northeast. So I got into it basically a little bit of fear in like the cheese moved and I needed a new business and I was not technically trained to be an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, any of those things. I went to business
Mhm.
school at Penn State. Like I know business. And
I didn't
that's
know
how the
you were.
decision was made.
I didn't know you were a Penn State guy.
I am.
I'm a Rutgers guy.
Still love you, buddy.
I still love you too. Dude, so for the owner, someone who's got their 10 units and they're managing it themselves, you've managed or have overseen the management of tons and tons of units. Do you have any tips or tricks in, and not tricks because it's not about tricking, but what's the most effective way and efficient way to manage these properties if you do decide to just do the management yourself? Do you have any tips and tricks there?
I'm getting up on my chair here, man. I'm like adjusting to get ready for this one, right? So most of the challenges that investors face is they're on these forums. Now, maybe the landscape's changed since I was getting this data in on real estate, but they're grossly underestimating the capital expenditures and the maintenance cost
Mm,
of their properties, like by a factor of magnitudes. The vacancy and collection to run a 10 unit portfolio at 5% vacancy and collections is damn near unheard of. It is not very, it is so hard to do that for the average 10 unit portfolio. Very difficult to do that. 8% vacancy would be 1 month vacant in a 12-month lease. Okay,
mm,
so you have a single family house and you're going to turn that over in a weekend? That's pretty difficult to do and have no vacancy, and they're going to stay,
mm.
and you're not going to need to paint a lot. You're not going to want to do some improvements. So really, it's before it even gets to the property manager, know the asset class. And what I like to do is, as I'm looking at them, a lot of banks, a lot of the small local banks, 2 and 3 branches or one branch, some of them offer a type of a product where you can buy, they'll lend you 75%, 80% of the purchase of the property, and then 75, 80, sometimes 100% of the construction renovation.
Mhm.
And that's what I would do. If an owner's selling a building, chances are it needs work. And
Right.
I would front load all of the capex that I could,
Yeah.
and then I would turn it over. I would get more rent. I would have a more consistent return on my investment. I would have less maintenance calls to deal with, which means if there's a maintenance call, that means the tenant's going to be getting frustrated. They're letting you know about the maintenance because they're living in there. It's like you own the car, but they're driving it. So that's Matt, that's what I would do. And I would go to a lot of the local real estate clubs. I was read as many books as I could about the asset class that I'm interested in. Mine is the small multifamily, like 5 to 20 units. I'd love to take down bigger stuff. I'm sure the universe has that in store for the future, but right now I'm scooping up the 5 to 20 unit buildings that need love. And the owner's selling because the returns aren't there because the vacancy's higher and the maintenance is higher. And then so now they have less rent, more expenses, and they don't think their building is worth as much. And it's really
Mhm.
not in that state. So that's what I would do. It's not uncommon for me to buy a building that's been self managed and be able to double the rent roll with the same amount of units. Double the rents, bring them up to market. So I take 3 bedrooms, I make them 4 bedrooms. I take 2 bedrooms, I make them 3 bedrooms. Sometimes I've taken irregular 2 bedrooms and split them in half and gotten them changed the zoning to have more apartments in the same square footage. And then basically convert a lot of things to either gas or electric for the heat, and then put in AC, all modern amenities, all new appliances. And then I do where I live, the water and sewer is very expensive. So I put meters on that, and then I charge that back to the tenant. So
That's exactly what we just did on a 6-unit building that we had. The electric and the gas were already separated, but I separated the water too. You cut your expenses, and we renovated the units, got the income increase, and if you're buying between 5 and 20 units, it's appraised on a how much money is this bringing in on a monthly basis? What is the net operating income? And you increase that, you increase the value of your building. And I mean, you're increasing your net worth. You'll be able to pull out more cash. You'll cash flow more because you're increasing your income. But that's great. What did you call these buildings in the beginning?
oh, the big league burrs.
Big League Burrs. I
Fair.
like
I
that.
didn't come
No,
up with that name. Somebody else did from a presentation. They said,
it's
"Man, that sounds like a big league burr." I said, "All right, we'll call it the big league burr."
dude, it's good, man, and I think that's such a strong strategy because like, the CapEx really can kill you if you don't do those repairs right off the bat, and I think there's a lot of properties that were built in that, like,
Mm.
1920, 1900, 1930s timeline that are probably just now coming into this period where a lot of things are gonna start going wrong in properties.
Oh, yeah.
And especially with where we're at right now, there's a lot of people who could be stuck with some pretty hard debt that they thought was adjustable rates that they thought were gonna be lower, and they have these new big capital calls that they have to pull out because they've got these big renovations to do. So that's huge to look into, man. I love that. If somebody wanted to build their own property management company right now, like, what would they do? From scratch.
So you have to decide if you're going to do it for yourself and stay focused on managing your own properties, or if you're going to bring in other people's properties. That is, its complexities and magnitudes higher to manage other people's stuff. My
Mm,
recommendation will be riches in niches. So if Matt, let's say
mm,
you already are in a few towns and you have a lot of the smaller multifamilies, then and you like those, then that's what I would go after. I would carve out a niche for how do you do those small multifamilies, and I would document as much as you can. I work on an Excel workbook or a Google Doc, and I'd say, boom, how do we lease? What's all the steps that we do for leasing and placing the highest quality tenant in the shortest period of time? Then how do we do maintenance? And what are all those steps to do maintenance? Then how are we going to do the accounting and reporting and do all that?
mhm,
You have to be in Pennsylvania, you have to be underneath a broker. You have to have a company. Company has to be registered with the real estate commission in Pennsylvania. I don't know if this is still true, but back, I believe it is. You have to have a physical office. My
mhm,
offices have physical and they have filing cabinets that lock. I know everything's in the cloud anyway now, but yeah, filing cabinets that lock and a
mm,
conference room. Like they have these check the box to say, okay, yep, now you are a licensed brokerage underneath a broker. And then anybody who's like collecting rent or placing tenants is licensed under that broker. So if I had to do it over again, the riches and the niches is really where I think it's at. And then if you do a good job for those landlords, they will. Sorry, my I'm getting distracted because my phone's still still good. One of the
ho
properties on, but anyway, I got
how could you do that to me, Rob?
All right. But it's a buddy telling me, "Hey, this is available. Do you know about it?" And of course I know about it because I'm in the town. So it's perfectly the universe is saying, "Know your towns." I know where I buy, I know the blocks, I know where I want to be, I know the council people, I know where they're going, I know
Right,
what the grants are coming up. So diamonds in your own backyard, and then I would market to get more landlords and be just more selective in who you manage for, because
mhm,
not every landlord has the right intentions. And then grow steady Eddie and build a good team around yourself. And just make sure you didn't miss the goal, the result. So, a mentor, I'll say this and shut up, a mentor who has magnitudes higher worth of value than me, which also means experience in the real estate world, big ass developer in Philly. He says, Rob, if you're in real estate for any reason beyond getting a great deal on real estate, you are in it for the wrong reason.
w what does that mean to you?
I mean, if you're in real estate, you mean you should be, whatever you're doing should be centered around buying properties right. To me
Mhm,
means off
mm,
like value add, distressed seller, motivated, first look at these things. That's that is why you should be in it. This other stuff, and look, I'm talking about a developer that's worth north of $100 million. Any other reason, yeah, I'm not going to say you're not a real estate investor. I've only become a real estate investor. It took me almost 20 years. Now I'm a real estate investor
right,
where I'm deploying capital in different markets and identifying and looking at IRRs and returns and this and that. Before it was a job. Like I'm managing real estate. Okay.
Right.
Or you're a broker and you're selling real estate, or you're on the finance side and you're doing the DSCR loans. Okay, all that's real estate, but this gentleman's saying don't like, because his goal is to buy and my goal is to build wealth in real estate.
Right.
Freedom. That's what these shirts are behind me. I want to have freedom, both the financial and the inner freedom. I'm not sure if I answered your question succinctly
Dude,
enough as to what I
honestly,
would
I
do.
think that was the universe talking to me right now because I have so what I've done in the past is I have only bought good deals. Like that is all I've been doing and that's why I haven't really scaled my portfolio a like huge because I just buy crazy stupid deals. Like I'm buying a single family right now for 35,000 that's literally worth right now with no work done to it, it's worth around 140,000. And like I get these deals, these types of deals with everything. Like I only buy good deals, but that makes me really selective and I haven't done a lot of prospecting for more units, but
Mm.
when like for off market stuff. So once I get back and in April, I've got this marketing launching. I've got hopefully a good off-market stream coming to me, man. Yeah, that was impactful and it lets me know that I'm doing the right thing, man. So thank you for that.
Let me
Let
do some napkin math for you real quick, if you don't mind.
yeah.
Let's so $100,000 is with the equity that you're buying that property with. Okay. To get $100,000 in a property management company without working in the company, national averages are going to say that you're going to be on a 10% EBITDA level, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation. That's $1 million
No.
worth of property management. Okay. So take $1 million, divide it by $1,000. That's if that was your revenue per door for the year on that one unit. So a $800 apartment that you're charging 10% on, that's not yet $1,000. Maybe when you add an application fee and a late fee or a notice fee or a maintenance markup, it's even
Mhm.
less if you're. So, what I'm saying on that one scenario, right? To have $1 million property management business, you're managing 1,000 units if you're making $1,000 a year. That's a lot of responsibility versus that one house that you bought that you created some sort of an arbitrage. Something was going on, one of the 3 or 4 Ds: death, disease, divorce, drugs. That's my challenge with the property management. From a I'm going to be a property manager and I'm going to get rich on property management, highly likely, unlikely to happen. But if you're building it as a vertical because you have 20 of those houses coming in a year and there's not
Mhm.
already a good manager in your area that you can partner with or do something with, then it may be a necessary means. Because
Mm.
me personally, I've never sold anything ever. I don't have
Right.
any plans to. So I would buy that for 35. I would renovate it so I don't have any capital improvements needed for 20 years. Then it might be worth 200. And then I'd do a cash out refinance. I'd put the 75,000 bucks in my pocket plus what I bought, the this and that and the other, and I'd keep moving on.
Right. Dude, that's honestly the plan with it. Like everything I've bought has just been it's got the value, at least 30% equity built into it. If you're listening right now and you say, "Why 30% equity?" If you have 30% equity, you can do a cash out refinance. The bank will give you around 75% of that property. So you have a 5% difference there to at least get all of your money back out of that property. But enough about me, enough about my assets. We're going to jump into the final questions. But before that, I want to give the listeners a little bit of a sneak peek of what our next episode is going to be in a few months from now, probably 6 months. I don't know, somewhere down the line, whenever it happens, whenever it comes to us. And this is the last question. What is one question that you wish I would have asked or a topic that I wish I would have covered? And how would you have answered that question or how would you have expanded upon that topic?
Jeez. First of all, man, I thought he did a great job in this interview. He stayed fully present with it. You have a genuine interest in helping people and getting this content out. So I would just honor you for that. And I know that you're not just interested in things, you actually experience these things and you go out and you take action and you're creating this life for yourself and the universe is cool. It's cool, man. It's cool what you're up to and
I
what you
appreciate
stand
you,
for.
man. I love you, Rob.
I love you too, man. Gosh, the question is like, what else would I have liked you to ask? I'm very accessible to people. I just had a talk with about 40 real estate investors and I've put out there about a mastermind group of very close, very high touch, come out and see my real estate projects that I'm working on, meet a property manager, meet my construction foreman, meet my guy who just moved up from Florida, Paul Croth, who's doing the redevelopment with me. So it would be like if somebody wants to get a hold of me and that lives locally, that would be the most juice for the squeeze. Reach out. I'm very accessible. I enjoy lowering the ladder for the next generation on this. And
Mm.
it doesn't necessarily even need to be an age thing because I'm helping out a gentleman right now who just sold a tech company, has a huge tax bill. It's going to be perfect to do. He wants to get into real estate. We're going to set him up at an opportunity zone fund. I have two regions myself that I'm investing in, and I'm going to do a consulting agreement with him to basically be like his Merrill Lynch guy, but for real estate to get him facing in the right direction and with all the resources that he needs. So I would say, yeah, for me, like when I read Untethered Soul, then I'm going down. This is my fifth trip down to Michael Singer's place. I like to just drill the well a mile down. For
Mm.
me, it like starts with a book, it starts with a podcast, it starts looking at a website, reading some other articles, listening to some other podcasts. Then I pick up the phone and I'm like, hey man, I want to learn something, and I'm willing to trade some time for money or some sort of a barter, whatever it might be, for those that are really interested in going to the next level because I think it's a wonderful time to be doing this. I'm actively buying. I know you are. Interest rates, this, recession, that. Like, I'm going to do that dollar cost averaging like you do in the stock market, where it's take down X number of properties every year. And the microwave way to wealth. I've never
Mm.
bought a property with that much equity as a percentage basis. If I had a lot of those deals flowing, it would be a little different. But I'm the crock pot way to
Right.
well. Well,
I
like,
was gonna say
yeah,
the microwave is
yeah,
that gets stuff done quick.
yeah. I'm more the crock pot.
Yeah, the crock pot is sometimes I would say it tastes a lot better than the microwave food, so what you end up with in the end is likely gonna be a little better when you follow that
That's it.
strategy, man. But Rob, man, I appreciate all this time. Where can the listeners and watchers find you online?
Yeah, mostly on Facebook. I have email address is rob at rentwell.com. And if you just reach out to Rentwell, they can get a hold of me. I use a Calendly link that makes it easy to book 15 minutes and just have a quick conversation and see if there might be a fit.
Nice. And how much is a 15-minute consultation with you?
Yeah, that's free, man. There's
That's free. It's all out of the heart there. Man, Rob, appreciate the time today, brother. From the Financial Freedom Fast podcast, we are signing off, and this is Rob Coldwell.